I've got episode 1 all tied up. Come and join me for some Sewing Bee Sparkle. Hello, my name's Sam and welcome to my channel Sew That Sparkle with Sam, and I have got my trusty starry pen and I have got my trusty Bee notebook, and I am ready to give you my sparkly opinions on the latest episode 1, season 11 of the Sewing Bee, the Great British Sewing Bee. Now, if you haven't watched and you don't want any spoilers, then that is fine. You can find all of my Sewing Bee vlogs in a playlist down below. Save them all up. When you're safe to watch, come back and join in the fun. But if you have watched and you're keen to find out what I thought of the bees this week, then stay tuned and don't forget to give me a like and subscribe if you can. So, episode 1. I don't think there was anyone in the world more excited than me about the season starting. I felt like it had been a really long wait, but a wait worth waiting for, I think. So let me get to the correct page. If you haven't seen my Meet the Bees video, then please go and watch that. So that is my kind of first video, and then this is episode 1. But my first video, Meet the Bees, I go through all of the contestants and all of the information that I managed to find out about them and kind of give you a little bit of information. But we actually got to meet them this week, which was just fantastic. So, set the scene. There was lovely Sarah in a I Love Leeds t-shirt doing some exercises and talking about getting everybody into shape. And as soon as I kind of saw that, and I thought, oh, maybe they're doing like activewear week, you know, straight away. But no, it was just for the pun, so that you could have Esme and the lovely Patrick in a square and triangle suit. Insert picture here. But you know, this is why I love Sewing Bee, because it is just always punny. And yeah, and I just love the puns. It was lovely to see Sarah back after her maternity leave, and she did make a comment about labour being a little bit like sewing. Not sure I agree with her, but you know. And then we were straight into challenge 1, which brings me to what I'm wearing today. So I am going to try my best to link to my outfits to the Sewing Bee episode. So I am wearing my favourite tie front top, which is the Fleur dress and top. I've got the top version on here. I'll do you a full length version of it up here so you can see it more carefully. And this is the Fleur top and dress by Fabric Godmother, and it is very similar to the challenge that they were given for their pattern challenge 1. I'll pop a line drawing of the one that we were shown on the show, and I will put a picture of the Fleur so that you can make your mind up if you think it's similar. I definitely thought it was very similar. I love making the Fleur. I've made it as a dress, but I prefer it as a top. And yeah, it's just a nice, easy breezy tie front top. Yeah, so there we go. Look at me, matchy. Challenge 1. So it was the tie front blouse. It had the tie fronts. It had gathers on the sleeves and gathers on the peplum. And I think that that's what they were looking for. They were looking for that kind of careful gathering. And they have 3.5 hours to finish the pattern challenge. So for that, in that 3.5 hours, they go and choose their fabric. Their pattern pieces, I believe, are all cut out for them, but they have to cut their fabric out. So they have to choose their fabric, flatten their fabric, put their pattern pieces on the fabric. Obviously, fabric choice is very important, particularly with something like this. You want something with a bit of structure, but not so much structure. And something that's not too slippy slidey. You know, you just want to nail that first one, don't you? I feel like getting that first pattern challenge under your belt is really important for the Sewing Bee. And I have to say, if I had been on the show and this pattern had come up, I think I would have done a little, oh, I've got this. I think, you know, it feels doable. And in 3.5 hours, yes, the time is tight. The time is always going to be tight, but I think that's pretty doable. And only one contestant failed to finish in the time. So I think the time was fairly fair this week. As I said, it wouldn't be much of a competition if they had a few days. So the I'll pop up some pictures. The pictures of the contestants' efforts will come up here as I chat about them, and then I'll just have a kind of little chat about each one. So in 12th place was Safi. So Safi didn't quite finish hers. She chose a lovely fabric with tigers. It was, and I'm pretty sure I've seen that fabric on the high street, but it was I think it may have been some kind of sateen. It definitely felt slippy and slidey. And it was a top that didn't have a sleeve on. So that was in 12th place. Jess placed 11th, bless her heart. She did such a good job on getting it all finished, and then last minute she burnt it with the iron. We've all been there, we've all done it, which is why I am the queen of the pressing cloth. I have a pressing cloth everywhere in my sewing room. So yeah, and I did think actually, as soon as I saw that some of them were using ribbons rather than the fabric ties, I actually went and said to Mr. Sparkles, oh, I hope they've got pressing cloths, because if you touch an iron onto some ribbons, you can end up with a terrible mess. And then Novello was in 10th, Peter was in 9th, Yasmin was in 8th, Stuart in 7th, Dan was in 6th place, Orla was in 5th place, Glendora was in 4th place, Gaynor in 3rd, Kaz in 2nd, and Kit was in 1st place. So Kit has only been sewing for 1 year. 1 year. I couldn't believe it when that came up. I hadn't seen that before, that he'd only been sewing for 1 year. And he really nailed that first pattern challenge. So I think Kit is one to watch, because if you've only been sewing for a year and you can nail that first challenge, well done, Kit. Fantastic job. The gathering was great. Brilliant job. So I hope you've seen all of those. Now, in the next few vlogs, as we get less contestants, I will go into more details of which ones are my favourites and kind of what I liked about it. But because there's 3 challenges to get to and 12 contestants at the moment, the first ones always feel like a little bit of a whistle-stop tour. And then as the contestants dwindled, I get a little bit more time to go into a little more detail. But I'm always happy to chat in the comment. I love Sewing Bee, so if you fancy finding me on my socials or chatting in the comments, if you have any questions or anything, then feel free to ask and I will give you my opinion as it is. So after that, which I thought was a nice kind of easy in to the Sewing Bee pattern challenge, it was the transformation challenge. Now, I know the transformation challenge is not everyone's cup of tea and it tends to divide people. They have 90 minutes to transform a circle skirt. So they were all given a circle skirt. And I did feel that the rules were quite clear this time. They've said transforming into a garment. So it had to be into a garment. 1 skirt, no trim, no fabric. So they could get other bits and pieces for the haberdashery, like interfacing and that kind of stuff. No trim, no fabric. So I can't remember them having that many rules about a transformation challenge, although I could be wrong. So, but it was quite interesting that they were just allowed to use the skirt. And they all came up with some absolutely bangers, you know, absolute bangers. I actually was looking at them all and I found it hard to kind of place them. I thought, it's a really difficult thing to do, and it's also subjective. I mean, they're not, you know, it's not like you pick one and think, oh, well, I'd wear that to go to Tesco's. But I just love how they all use their imagination, and this is what I love about the first episode of Sewing Bee, is I think that it really gets you into the heads of the contestants. It really gets you to get to know them. I felt like after seeing their first transformation challenge that I got to know them all a little bit better. Like, I am really looking forward to seeing what Kit does, because he did this kind of like fantastic. It reminds me a little bit of, you know, when your dog has an operation and they put them in the cone of shame. Well, it was a bit like that, but it was all pleated. And you know, amazing, absolutely amazing. I thought that was really cool, and it, yeah, as I said, it made me really want to see what they've got to offer. The other person that really impressed me in this challenge, even though the judges put her quite low down, was Orla. Orla did this really cute, and I can see something like my daughter would wear, and it was like a tartan ruffle sleeved top. I just thought it was really cute. It was really clever. It was, you know, it no longer resembled any of the shapes of the skirt anymore. I think the reason that she was put a little bit lower down was it wasn't finished, but 90 minutes to completely transform something isn't a long time. But I did really enjoy that one. So Glendora, for this challenge, even though she completed the challenge, she was feeling unwell for the judging, so she didn't take part in any further part of the competition. So she was judged for this part of the competition, and she was judged in 9th place, but she didn't compete. She didn't come back, so she was still poorly. Yeah, so all absolutely fabulous. I'm just trying to think now what they all made. What I do when I watch the Sewing Bee for you is I watch it live on the Tuesday night, then I watch it again in the morning, and then I watch it one more time to kind of keep it all in my head. But because there is so many at the moment, I find it really difficult to remember, so which is why I keep looking down so I can see my notes. The other one that I really liked was Safi, and again, quite low down, but I thought hers was really pretty. It was kind of like a satiny bodice with a almost like a bra top with a peplum, but it was halter neck. And again, something that I would have seen myself wearing, perhaps not so much now, but I could have definitely seen myself, you know, jeans and a nice top back in my 20s and 30s. Absolutely beautiful. So yeah, so in the order that they finished, they had Jess in 12th place, Orla in 11th, Safi in 10th, Glendora came in at 9th, Stuart 8th, Peter 7, Gaynor 6, Novella was 5, Dan was 4th, Kit was 3rd, Yasmin was 2nd, and Kaz was the winner. So Kaz kind of did an upside down kind of jacket. It had a really, I mean, it was striking because it was monochrome, it was black and white, it was white with black spots, and it had a like proper Barbie pink, well, almost neon pink actually, zip all the way down. It was one of those big chunky anorak zips. And I can see why the judges liked it. I found I think that maybe my creativeness in that way of seeing things is perhaps, you know, totally different to some of the others. And I don't know, for me, it felt like it was the wrong way round. It felt a bit like funny in proportion, but I guess that without actually seeing it in the reel, it's really difficult. That I love Esme and Patrick's decisions. I just think, you know, they're the ones there, they're the ones seeing it. They've seen the creativity that's gone into it. So I'm thinking, that's great. If you thought that was banging, then I'm with you. So yeah, Really good, really great. And also a little mention to Yasmin's as well. Hers was also polka dotty, it was purple, and she went for that Esme pleaser of the massive bow. And you know, if you're going to go on Sewing Bee and you're going to be a contestant, you better be prepared to make a massive bow. So as I said, for the final made to measure, Glendora didn't compete in this part of the competition. For the made to measure, they were told pleats. So they had their models this week. So their models came back, and I have to say, I've been watching Sewing Bee for so many years now that I actually have a bit of a love for the models. I love seeing which models have paired up with which contestants, because I have my favourite models. I mean, you know, and there was some new models that I hadn't seen before, and that was really lovely. So it was lovely to have the models there, and they made to measure 5 hours to make a pleated outfit. And maybe I think they all made dresses, so it may have been a pleated dress. I think it may have, yeah, and pleats for shape. So 3 of the contestants, and if you're on my Facebook group, you can go onto my Facebook group and download the little bingo cards that I've done for you. And 3 of the contestants did the same pattern. So there's a tick on the bingo card for you. So Jess, Kaz and Stuart all chose the same pattern. And it was just a very simple A-line dress with pleats. But this is the thing about Sewing Bee. They all chose the same pattern, but they all made completely different dresses. Stuart's, I thought, was quite striking in the fact that he chose to put his pleats all around the neck piece, and it was in like, I call it chocolate purple, you know what I mean? And yeah, and it was just stunning. It did look like someone had kind of pleated, you know, I'm trying to think of that technique that they use on pastry. It wasn't pastry, it was fabric. But yeah, that looked absolutely fantastic. Jess went very simple, but with a really striking colour in her 60s baby doll stand-up collar dress. Again, same pattern. And Kaz chose denim. Now, I think denim is one of those kind of fabrics that I don't put with pleats necessarily, but it can pleat up really nicely. I remember one time a denim pleated skirt being made on Sewing Bee, and I'm pretty sure that was fairly impressive. So but what I loved about Kaz's A-line was the contrast top stitching. So she made a real feature of the pleats, and I think that, you know, getting your sewing skills, particularly top stitching, live on television, you know, live there on the show on Sewing Bee, you know, there's nothing to hide with top stitching. You're really showing your everything. So that also kind of started making my brain think about Kaz. I was thinking, yeah, Kaz knows what she's doing. And yeah, it was actually really, really effective. So I really enjoyed that one. So those were the 3 that made the same dresses. Now, what I always do on these videos is at the end, so if you stay to the end, you get rewarded, and I will do a reel of all of the contestants' line drawings and then their finished piece, because it can get a bit hectic with kind of photos coming in and out. So if you want to go to the end, then you will see all of those. As I said, later on when there's less, then I'm more happy to kind of fill the reel with photos. But for this one, wait to the end. So Gaynor did a very, very simple day dress. It was very well executed, and I thought it was stunning actually. And there's nothing wrong with your very first made to measure. You're there, you're on the Sewing Bee, keep it nice and simple. As long as you execute it well, keep it nice and simple. And it's exactly what she did. She did some beautifully embroidery on it, and actually I'm pretty sure she did some embroidery on her transformation challenge as well. So I'll be looking out for Gaynor's embroidery skills, because that's obviously something that she really enjoys and does really well. Kit, I was excited to see how Kit was going to use the pleats. he decided to go David Bowie inspired, you know, the lightning bolt. And my notes says on here, nearly, not quite. And because I could totally see where Kit was going to, and I could totally see that. His line drawing was fantastic, but there was just something a little bit missing in the execution, and I can't quite put my finger on what it was. There was just something not quite, and I just think that may be a little bit of kind of inexperience, or just, you know, the show. So again, I'm really looking forward to seeing what's going to happen there. It was very impressive, but as I said, just something missing. I mean, it's so hard, isn't it, to pick between your favourites. Yasmin, I have put love it, little heart, not quite finished, but do you know what? I am a sucker for tartan. I think this is why I liked Orla's transformation as well, and this is definitely why I liked Yasmin. She did a kind of punky, skater girl-esque tartan dress, very Vivienne Westwood inspired. I just loved it. I just thought it was really pretty. It was very short. I don't think I'll be wearing that one, but I really enjoyed it. Dan's dress. So Dan, he called it a Christmas bow dress, and it was inspired by a present that he'd been given by his sister. It must have been some kind of origami bow, and he tried to kind of replicate that on a dress. Unfortunately, it was more of a pleat on a dress than a pleated dress. Does that make sense? The bow didn't quite work out, so we ended up with this like kind of pleated windmill. It was like a circle with like the pleats in. I hope that gives you an image. So yeah, it was very pretty. Model rocked it. Thought it, you know, but was it a pleated dress? Not 100% sure. Novello. So Novello, lovely story, this one. She used some wedding dress material that she was going to use to make her daughter a wedding dress 17 years ago, and she still had the fabric, so fantastic that she got to reuse it. Novello's obviously got some real technique, and real technique that I do not have. So she used some horsehair braid in her makes. Now, I know that you can use that for jackets, and it's something that I've never used. And the skill in kind of transforming that raw silk, you know, such a beautiful, delicate, gorgeous fabric into something quite structural. And it reminded me, Novella's dress reminded me, I always go into food, and I do apologise, but it reminded me of, you know, the pasta shells, like the, is it rigatoni? Is that the ones that they're called? And they're kind of like, and you fill them. Yeah, it reminded me of that. In my head, I was like, oh yeah, it's like the little pasta shells all around the dress. I mean, I'm making it sound delicious. It was very impressive. I really, really loved that. And all the drama was in the pleats, which is what I think the brief was. So that was fabulous. I've done Kaz and Stuart. They did the same dress pattern as Jess. So then we'll go on to Orla. Orla impressed me much. I have to say, I'm always really impressed with the younger contestants when they come on Sewing Bee. I feel like I want to take them under my wing and look after them. And I don't think Orla needs any looking after at all. She completely held her own in this competition. She was fantastic in this episode. She did a monochrome dress, and I think with the pleats, like doing that there's something quite clever in that. It was a really unusual way. Normally when I look at a dress, I can kind of figure out what they've done, what pleats they've done, how they've kind of made that structure. I really struggled with Orla's. It was a really unusual, very clever technique, and it kind of gave you this kind of visual illusion that like it was kind of going like that. That makes sense. Yeah, and when I watched it back, I could hear her chatting, and she did say, you know, with the pleats, I've decided to go big or go home. And again, Gaynor went the keep it simple, just, you know, get through. Orla went for go big, go home. And I think hats off to both of you. Absolutely fantastic. So Safi, I was a little worried about Safi. I'm going to be really honest. Early on, she didn't have a great first challenge. She didn't really have a great second challenge. And I was literally cheering for her. I was on the edge of my sofa going, come on, Safi, you have got this. You know, nobody wants anyone to go home in the first week. So I was like, come on, Safi, you can do it. And she came with all the right tools. She came with custom printed fabric. She did inverted knife box pleats. I think she put in pockets. I mean, who doesn't love pockets? I think she had an absolutely fabulous result, and I thought it looked brilliant on the model. The model rocked it. And yeah, I just thought, well done you, because I just think it must be a really hard thing to come back from when you've had a bit of a knock. You know, the hardest thing, isn't it? Get back up again and go for it. So yeah, well done, Safi. I'm watching you. And then there was Peter. So Peter did kind of a statement little black dress number. So it was kind of keep it simple, but keep it all in the pleats. Now, what I loved about Peter's is the pleats, he had like pleat shoulder things. I can't think of the word, but it didn't look like fabric. It looked like paper origami. It really did. The pleats were so crisp and, you know, so structural. You can tell he's an engineer. You know, it was very engineered, but it also looked very chic and very modern, in a kind of classic little black dress way. Little belt, just absolutely stunning. And I think that was the reason why Peter won the outfit of the week. So yes, so that was the results. They do not score the made to measure in order. It's just, you know, one winner, which is the outfit of the week, and that was Peter. And I thought that was very deserved. But I do think that I think I picked a few, really. I found it really difficult to find my absolute favourite. And they decided that because Glendora was unwell this week, that it wouldn't have been fair to send any of the contestants home. And I totally agreed with that. I would have been devastated if they'd sent someone home this week, because, you know, I don't think it would have been fair. So we get to see all 12 again next week for activewear. I love activewear week, so I am going to be going now to have a look in my drawers to see what I've got to wear for next week's episode. So, you know, you see me running into next week in my activewear. I hope that you've enjoyed my little synopsis, and wherever you are, don't forget to leave me a comment and give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you'd like to, because it all helps out my channel. Thank you so much for staying to the end. Here is the bees, their design drawings, and then their finished outfits. I'll see you next Wednesday at 6 p.m. and don't forget to sparkle. Bye for now.